human connection feels human. Some days you might feel really lonely, and then other days you don't. And it's all data. I only like to work on like impossible problems, like replacing Google, creating a unified AI for everything. It was always motivating to some extent to have people tell me that I'm wrong, because I know I'm right. I need to change, so then you do change.
I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my interview with Bryan McCann. In part 2, we cover topics like human and AI collaboration and what that means for us in our field of work. We discuss things like how your leadership capacity grows whenever you go through times of adversity. We also get a great look behind the curtain of a founder journey. I hope you all enjoy this next interview, and please follow along for more interviews with amazing founders just like Bryan. What about you.com? And like, let's get into some nitty gritty stuff here about like just how you operate as a CTO, because I think that's really interesting. How do you guys structure your product team? How have you guys seen different iterations of your company? How'd you go from seed stage? I'm going to shotgun some just things for you to talk about.
Yep.
How'd you go from early stage to scaling startup, and then you're heading towards market leader? So how did you structure the team on that process?
Well, it's changed a lot. I guess my favorite analogy has been that I like to structure the team like a neural network, so that it's optimized for learning and flexible in that way. And if you're making neural networks, then some principles you can keep in mind are to have like dense connections between different nodes in the network. So it's really good to have information flow freely everywhere in the network, so you don't want people off isolated, especially in the early days when you don't know as much what you're doing. You don't want too much of the structure to actually settle too early. You want it to stay flexible, even though a lot of times some people are drawn towards like maybe like more flat organizations. Some are drawn towards much more structure. I do think you have to avoid some like too much structure too early on. So we're starting to see more structure, but we're still really flat. In the early days, it was just really, really flat. I started out, me and one other guy, we made the first version of everything. We hired the first 5 engineers. We were very engineering heavy in terms of hiring.
Were those full-time hires, or were there?
I made about 5 full-time hires pretty much right off the bat.
Okay.
And then once we had a version of the product that was growing and doing well, then we hired like another 5 to go up to about 10 full-time people. And that was going to help us do a true public launch, which we did in like November 2021, I think. And we started using some staff augmentation during that time because front-end resources in particular were very hard for us to find and get. But we needed to build a lot of different iterations of our UI as we were experimenting with like, how do you introduce new generative AI things to users that have no idea how to use it in the context of search, which they all have this expectation around what Google is like. So we're doing a lot of experimentation there. And then once we started seeing a little bit more fit with the conversational interfaces, so once the interfaces started to settle down more, then we could double down even more on growing the team and building more and more of that tech. So in the early days, the full-time hires were all machine learning AI people. Now they had to do everything. We all learned how to write front-end code.
My guess is if you can do the machine learning and AI, you can get in and figure out some of the other tech.
Yeah, well, you had to. And that's when we started using Midwestern as well, because typically we would go in these phases of like finishing a project or finishing a direction, and then kind of going through an exploration period where we needed to augment our staff much faster than we could hire. So every time we would go through one of these waves, we'd bring in some more Midwestern people to allow us to accelerate very quickly, since you guys have all like pre-vetted everybody and you can bring people in for like the right use case. And then our full-time hiring can kind of catch up and have more time for me to be like very, very picky on full-time hires, which has worked really well for me. You guys have probably seen, like, it's allowed me to also hire probably more senior engineers that then work with the Midwesterners, and my guys will do like more project management, almost like tech leading type of stuff, probably earlier in their careers than they normally would as well.
Yeah. So there's like a leveling up that can happen because there's space to do that.
I think so. And it allows us to just grow and expand very quickly to go through this exploration phase until we like find the answer. And then what ends up happening anyways is that by the time you get there, you very rarely, if ever, scale down again. You're always growing more. So that's worked well. I think the other big things are, the communication aspect, product, engineering, design. That information has to flow very easily. And then if you bring in, staff augmentation or an embedded team, that can't impede any communication either. So the fact that a team can come in and just be part of the team in that respect, very, very important.
Awesome. So what would advice be that you would have for anyone that's wanting to get into becoming an AI researcher or follow the path that you've kind of been on?
I would say, well, my heuristic for trying to find ways I could have impact was always looking for areas where, if I didn't do it, it was unclear if anybody would. So in the philosophy side of things, it was not clear to me that anybody was going to be looking at any of it from these perspectives. From the AI side, when I went into AI, Richard's thesis and direction was still not widely accepted. So there was still a little bit of that, like, there's just a small group of us that believe this. And if we're right, then you can have outsized impact. And if you're wrong, so be it. And then in every single paper I did, especially in the early years at Salesforce, I had that same notion in mind. Like, am I doing something that someone else is going to do in 3 months or 6 months or a year? Because if so, they'll let them do it.
Yeah.
Go do something else.
Why do I feel like I'm the one that has to do it?
Like,
they may be more equipped to do it.
Yeah, I don't need to do that. If someone else is already going to do it, then I don't need to do it. And so there's some internal calibration on the things I was naturally interested in, and then finding areas in there that I was drawn to almost purely because other people didn't find them as interesting, or found them too hard, or whatever it was. I used to also say I only like to work on like impossible problems.
Okay.
Like problems that people think are impossible, like replacing Google, something like that, or creating a unified AI for everything. Because I think rarely is it actually impossible. But that's a nice heuristic as well for, if most people are saying this is impossible, most of them are not going to work on it. If I think it is possible, then that's going to be potentially very high impact. So getting into AI, things like that, just do that.
Yeah.
Don't just go do the things that everybody's, currently talking about.
Yeah.
You need to go do some research outside and research inside yourself to find an area that you believe in that is ideally not so believed in by others, and then wait 13 years.
So it's kind of like what I hear you say. It's a Venn diagram of conviction, passion, and gifting, right? Like, and obviously, you could apply that into an area that's like, well, what are the impossibles, and where does my conviction, gifting, and passion align with that? But on that process for you, I can imagine there was days where you thought it might have been impossible. Or you thought, man, I'm hitting a brick wall here. And I have no idea if we can get through it.
Yeah. And I would say it's more the latter. I think the benefit that I had was that I never really doubted the ideas. I just thought those were possible. For whatever reason, I had like a clear and distinct perception of this should be the future. But if you believe that and you're not seeing it happen, then you do hit these moments where you're like, well, why can't I do it? Like, why? What's going on here? What's stopping this from happening? And so it was always motivating to some extent to have people tell me that I'm wrong because I know I'm right. But it was much harder to have the internal critic, tell me, why aren't you done yet? Why haven't you done, why can't you figure this out or whatever it is? So I will say I'll give you some concrete examples, but before I do, I'd say I'm super grateful for all of them now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not experiencing, I guess, the pain or whatever in the moment anymore, and that helps. But I think each time I hit some of those moments, it forced me to become the person I wanted to be more.
Yeah.
And maybe we can come back around at some point to tie that into this idea of, AI taking our jobs or replacing jobs and accelerating us and empowering us to push beyond our current humanity to be more human in other ways.
Yeah.
I think there's something to that. But I mean, in the early days, my first two papers, one, I didn't come out with a PhD.
Okay.
I hadn't had years of training in this. So I was working constantly trying to learn how to even do research in the way that I needed to do in order to keep that job.
Yeah.
Richard gave me the opportunity, but it was on me to publish at a top tier conference in the first year, or like, why are you here? What are you doing? So that year was probably one of the most difficult just technically. And I spent plenty of nights by myself, in the office with loss curves and experiments going and logging into, at some point I was logging into like 64 different machines with all the GPUs and like collecting all these logs, which was thankfully automated to a large extent now. A lot of people like don't need to do that manually. But there are definitely times where I was sitting there like, like I know this should work, but I can't get it to work.
Yeah.
Why? What is going on? And it wasn't typically ever any particular night or moment, but just that would go on for months.
Yep.
It's really like the brutality of months of doing that. One night late in the office is not like, that's fine. But if you've slept in the office 5 out of 7 nights in the week, and when you do that, you're working till 4 and then someone comes in at 7, like it starts to feel like, what's going on here? What's going on with me? Yeah. And that's the important part.
I'm the one failing.
I'm failing and I need to change. So then you do change. I think that's the important part. You just adapt. You adapt. It's almost like the stronger you are and the more attached you are to that version of yourself, maybe the more long nights it takes to change your thinking, to do things differently.
To where you are the roadblock.
Yeah. So you actually are the roadblock in like a very real psychological way. And so after I did that first paper, I operated very differently. I was like, oh, I can't do that. My second paper was even better in many, many ways. And it was because I couldn't do it the old way. I could never have done another paper that way. After I did the second paper, I was like, okay, I don't want to work alone so much anymore. It's a human need. I just don't want to. So I set myself a goal, went through our whole kind of OKR equivalent system, aligned with Richard, who is my manager. Like I'm going to try to publish 7 papers this year. Instead of one big one, I'm going to do 7 with 7 new researchers I've never worked with.
Nice.
So I can learn from everybody else. Because I saw in those moments when you're like in the crucible doing your work, what I wanted and who I wanted to be. So I did that.
Yeah.
Then it brought me into management. I was okay, I'm going to have my own team doing this research. And then that prepared me for leaving to be a CTO. and hiring and doing that.
Right.
And everything every year, every 6 months, every month. There's some version of this where I go through building the first app, and that's your job, and that's your main priority. And then at some point you have to like let go of that.
Yep.
And that version of yourself, you have to let go to like become whatever the company needs you to be or your team needs you to be.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how most of the time adversity or hardship or a pruning season really does bring out a new version of who you are becoming, that without that season would have taken years,
if ever,
your entire lifetime for you to realize that you needed that to get to that next stage.
Yeah.
And I think what's beautiful about that is kind of this paradoxical relationship, because it's like, you probably don't wish that you were by yourself 5 nights a week doing that all by yourself. You would never sit in this room and say, I'm going to do that.
I wouldn't want to do it again.
Exactly. But you're grateful that it happened to get you to that next step. And I think those are really interesting pieces to this like human experience that, you see it throughout all of humanity, to consider hardship, consider things that require endurance, consider those things as things we should be happy about. But when you're in the moment, it's hard to set your mind on those types of things. And when you look even at the cellular level, there is the breakdown of muscle that then allows it to be built back stronger. And I think what you have just described is that at its basic level.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you need a certain, and that analogy applies well too, because the stronger the muscle or the more set in your identity, whether it be about work or anything else, the stronger the force or stimulus is needed to trigger like the level of damage or
your capacity raises,
create growth.
Yeah.
Right. So the more attached you are to it, to some extent, the more it takes to move to the next level.
There's an element for me when I think about hardships in my life and things that I've gone through. Obviously, hardships are relative. The hardest thing that I've been through may not be the hardest thing someone else has been through, or the inverse, right? But whenever I look at seasons of growth in my life, what that has really done is that it has allowed this new version of myself to be able to take on more without hitting that breaking point. And so as hardships increase and you get through it, your capacity for new hardship increases. And it's like fast forwarding your ability to take on adversity and hardship with a clear mind.
And I would also add responsibility and things like that as well. I used to like the sense that every time I broke through some barrier, maybe technically and psychologically, then I would go up to the next level. But that next level is stressful, but anything below that just feels playful.
Yeah.
And nice. You're like, oh, I've been here before.
And
I
you
can
help
this.
Other people through it whenever they're going through it.
And that is actually also really important too.
Yeah.
For like having that feeling of play is a great sign that you can probably take on more. The fact that at some point I was freaking out about, using one machine so much, and it's this expensive computer, to then running like supercomputers with thousands and costing millions of dollars for like one experiment. It's like my idea. It's going to cost like all this money, right? That would have freaked me out before.
Yeah.
But because you work into it, and now it's just like, oh, that's like playful.
Yeah.
It's like you're just playing with different tools.
How does that go into, like, obviously your work has been something that you've put a lot of your identity in, right? And you shared with me that you've been a digital nomad recently and you're looking to like settle back down. One of the reasons for that was dating. Like what does your personal relationships in your life look like? Are you moving into a season where maybe you're thinking, I've spent a lot of this time on AI building artificial intelligence. Maybe it's time to start focusing in on the real thing.
So part of my digital nomading has been trying to find out where I'd want to do that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily forever, just to get that next stimulus. Like looking for that energy, or like looking for that thing that would stimulate the muscles to grow in this analogy. And for me, that's been like an interesting journey, just jumping around, assessing. It's very, I don't know if it's rational or irrational. It's just human, you know, being somewhere, seeing what it feels like, meeting people there, whether you're meeting people through dance classes or, art shows or AI events, whatever it is, just getting a sense of mm, how that context will change me, my vector, you know,
Yeah.
not just my word vector, but like my own sense of
What makes
identity,
Bryan
what
Bryan?
makes me me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think is a really fascinating experience.
Do you find that some of this is challenging, like dealing with certain things like, am I lonely?
Mm.
Do I need another person in my life
Mm-hmm.
so that this other person isn't my work? It's actually someone else that I can enjoy life with. Like, walk me through that at this stage in your life.
At least me, I love that kind of questioning of the self. Like, okay, am I lonely? Let's go with that question. Am I lonely? And then some nights, some days, you might feel really lonely,
Mm.
and then other days you don't. And there's a version of yourself that can kind of back out from that and be like, what is making me feel lonely? What's the context? What's the environment? What do the days look like that make me feel that way? And what are the ones that make me feel this other way that I think is more enjoyable, whatever it is? And it's all data, right? Like, is this the life you want? Are you the
Yeah.
person that you want to be or you need to be? And if not, what needs to change?
Yeah.
And you need to like adjust your vectors so that you tomorrow you predict a better day.
So
That's really fun.
how would you process, because a lot of that I hear, like, this is who I want to be, this is like what
Mm-hmm.
I need, and those types of things. How would you separate I from maybe life could be about others, not just about yourself? And like, so am I lonely, or um would I be better off having other people in my life that I could contribute to? Because like you said, you didn't want to do that paper anymore alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? You wanted to
Yeah.
be a part of a team because you feel like
Yeah.
humans were meant to be together. You go back to tribal things even early on in
Mm-hmm.
humanity, right? Like there's this tribal instinct. And so just curious how, if this pursuit, you find your tribe at work, and if it's starting to be like, okay, maybe I need this tribe outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
How do we balance these things as founders to where does work become too much of our identity that we forget that maybe there's an identity of ourself that is found in community with other people aside from our work?
Yeah. No, I think yeah, there's no question about that. It's very easy. I don't know if it's that people who are more likely to be founders are more likely to lose their identity in work, or
Mm,
if they lose their identity in work, so they're more likely to be founders. But um, I think it's if you're someone like me who can get into that and then pour everything into it, yeah, it's very easy to wrap yourself up in that. Um, but this will be a hard concept to unpack, but like my conception of self is definitely not like singular. I think I've gone through enough uh whatever you want to call them, tragedies or whatever it is, that have like broken down my sense of self as like a singular person, that I just don't. So a lot of times when I talk about myself, um I'm talking about like the network of people that I'm connected to in various ways, some of which, like very close family, and some,
mm.
or maybe your chosen family, and then even out to other people, right, that I'm meeting regularly. Um, and so I think
So to you,
you're right.
self is
It's
this
intimately
network.
connected.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I just like, I, I know that I wouldn't be here without the people that have been around me in the past. And so my sense of self is connected to them. It's like very, and there's some distance you have to maintain just for like practically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain people in my life, if they're not happy, I'm not going to be happy.
Right.
And if they're never going to be happy, I'm never going to be happy. If their direction in life is, um, doesn't look promising and they're not getting fulfillment, then Like it's not just that I feel responsibility for them or something
Yeah.
like that. It's like I don't feel that, right? Because the people in my life, which are kind of an extension of me, and I'm an extension of them, we are not good.
Yeah.
And so my goal in kind of doing all this as well is finding other people that are like that and want to create this kind of beautiful community that's creating and crafting life, AI or not. But we're all going to go through this experience together and hold on to each other. And it doesn't really matter where. It can be all over the world.
But you're finding people that you're making that commitment to.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the nature of that commitment can vary, whether it's, marriage or a really strong friendship, like some of my best buds. But the more of those that I have, the more I feel, I think those feel very human, like those connections, which maybe it sounds trivial. Like human connection feels human. But I think, yeah, that's just like really, really important, maybe especially for founders, but you don't get a lot of time to do it. You just have to make time to do it, I suppose.